Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Real Keal Podcast, episode 0. The purpose of this episode is to basically go over the structure of what each episode will entail, as well as explain why we are doing this. I am Hannah Keal, and my co-host and spouse is Tyler Keal.
Hello.
And we are loosely calling this a positivity podcast because I feel like that's the easiest way to market and brand this type of a podcast. But I do sometimes wrestle with calling it that because, well, I know we've talked about this. I'm more of an optimist and you're more of probably a pessimist.
I think I've defined myself as a realist for a long time, but I think these days I lean more toward thinking of myself, I guess, as a pessimist.
It really is kind of our differing outlooks on the world and how we expect our day-to-day to go. I kind of always expect good things are to happen, or at least nothing bad is going to happen, and you kind of are the opposite. You anticipate problems and...
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm tend more toward expecting the worst to happen. And I think for me, that does mean when things go well or are going well, I don't recognize or appreciate that as much as I should. Well, my hope is through this podcast is reflecting on things that happen to us, or the different topics we're going to cover, and then seeing the positive in that, even talking about the more difficult situations.
We are going to talk about difficult subjects, difficult things that we've experienced. Really what I hope to accomplish is how you can see what certain situations, experiences that you may have, how that might be teaching you a lesson and what you can gain from it. What's the silver lining? I think we'll cover both, lighthearted subjects like TV shows, hobbies, things like that. But then we're also going to talk about some pretty difficult subject matter as well.
Yeah, I think that it's important to say now that the majority of the topics we're going to be talking about, we're not experts in, and we're here to give an average person perspective of, we both have a lot of different eclectic interests, but nothing.
There will definitely be a disclaimer, especially if we're going to cover something that's pretty either controversial or just heavy in nature. We will definitely make sure to put a disclaimer in front of every episode. So what is your experience with podcasts thus far? Because I know that the types of podcasts that I like to listen to are people that are rewatching TV shows. Or kind of like, for example, The Office ladies. There are two ladies who were on the show The Office, and they've been revisiting the different episodes, giving behind the scene looks and whatnot. And then another one that I watch or did listen to was Potterless, which is a guy who was in his 20s before he ever read a Harry Potter book, and kind of was outlining his experience, what he was thinking was going to happen. He would predict what he anticipated to happen in later books, which was always funny because he was dead wrong in some cases. So I know that there are, podcasts like this, which are more lifestyle type, I hope that people can get something out of it. And then there are other podcasts that are just for entertainment purposes, maybe meant more for nostalgia than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's been more my experience with podcasts, has been more of the entertainment type ones. I admit I was very late to the podcast game, and it was one of those things where it was like I heard people talking about podcasts, but it was one of those things of like, I don't understand what that is, and I didn't really look into it to figure out, okay, how does this work? I think my first experience with podcasts was Welcome to Night Vale, and which is huge now, and that was really cool for me in that it's a story form type. It's a fiction story podcast, and it's also fairly easy listening to if you're into that sort of lighthearted horror with a comedic twist type of thing. It's very unique and interesting. So I've listened to several different podcasts affiliated with the Welcome to Night Vale franchise, I guess, and people that work on that. And then I've also listened to the Carry the Fire podcast, which is run by Dustin Kinsrew of the band Thrice, who has personal significance to you and I, Hannah, because we used one of Dustin Kinsrew's songs of Crows and Crowns as our first dance song for our wedding. And it's actually from the Carry the Fire album, which is the running theme through his podcast. And his whole thing is bringing on people of different backgrounds and different perspectives and having a conversation and seeing how people can connect and learn from different backgrounds. So that's a good one. I also recommend on his YouTube channel, he has a playlist with commentary for each of the songs on the Carry the Fire album. He's a very thoughtful and insightful person, and I've definitely found that useful, and it's how I found the podcast. And then we also have several friends who, over the past few years, have started doing podcasts as well.
Speaking of which, just a quick shout out, I guess, to Sean Shaler, who helped me get started with knowing, equipment and whatnot, how to start a podcast, basically. So he's not responsible for any mistakes that we may make, and I know we're going to make many of them, but I do just want to say thanks, Sean, if you're listening, for helping us get started. He has 2 different podcasts. 3? 2.
He has 2
yeah.
I know of.
Yeah.
He's been doing one for a while. He's been doing one that started as a rewatch of the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. He's been doing that one for a couple of years now with a friend of his, and it's similar to the Potterless format, where he started with a rewatch and then commentary after each episode, and then has expanded into all the other materials in that franchise. And then he also more recently, with another friend of ours, started a similar format for Pokemon, largely covering the old TV series, but also covering the games and the manga as well, which they've asked me to make a guest appearance on that this week. So
fancy.
So I'm pretty excited about that. And then we have another friend who has started with a couple of his friends, a Kansas City Chiefs podcast, which I can't follow personally because I don't follow sports at all. So it's like they're speaking in code to me. So I can't follow that one, but I definitely support him. And if that's your thing, that one, I guess I should shout out all the names of these podcasts. Okay. Sean's podcasts are Avatar: The Last Podcasters, or The Last Podcast. I always mix that up. One of the two, you'll find it. The other one is Poke Malarkey. And then our other friend that has the Chiefs podcast is No Place Like Mahomes.
It definitely seems like the thing to do to start a podcast in 2020. Everyone's at home and not sure what to do with their time or talents.
I think it's a cool medium because
it is.
Like I said, I was late to the game and didn't understand what it was. And I was like, heard other people talking about podcasts, and I was like, oh, that's a fancy thing that people, while I'm listening to my old music that I've listened to since high school, and these people are listening to fancy podcasts. And I'm like, I didn't, and I think I had an aversion to it at first because I didn't understand what it was or what it could be. And now I'm like, it's a really cool medium because you can do so much with it, and it doesn't take that much to get started.
And it's something that I wanted to do. I know that I thought that it would be something I would like to do back. It was like in 2016 or something like that. It was several years ago that I thought about doing it. But I, like you said, we're pretty average people. We have average interests. We are not really experts in anything. So I didn't really know what kind of content I would be even able to talk about. But especially now, I feel tested in this year, how to remain positive in the face of trauma and difficulty. And that definitely is going to be a future episode, is kind of how I've been doing this year. But yeah, anyway, so I didn't know what I wanted to do with the podcast, and I was falling out of love with one of my other hobbies. So I definitely knew I needed to do something creative, a new creative outlet to pour my energy. And because of the experience that I had earlier this year, I think it helped give me a push and content to be able to talk about in starting my own podcast. And I dragged you into this, basically.
Well, I think it'll be fun. And I think that the running thread here is that, yes, we're going to offer our perspectives on different subjects, but we want to leave it somewhat open. And we do intend to bring on guests as well, if we can get anyone to agree to come
be
on
our silly podcast.
Yeah.
No. So the format basically is every day. We're not doing this every day.
Not every day.
Not every day. Every episode, I want to, if it's just you and I, or if we have a guest on, I want to ask how everyone is doing and give truthful answers, because I feel like that is something that I'm trying to do, is not fall victim to the whole like small talk monster where you just give the socially appropriate answer. If people are asking you how you're doing, maybe choose a time and place. And this is a good time and place to figure out, how you guys are doing. So that's how things will kick off. And if we do have a guest, introduce them, how we know them. Explain a little bit about our connections and histories, and then kind of leave it up for an open forum.
Yeah, I think so. And that's, we mentioned that we're not experts in anything, but we are bringing on people who we think can offer insight into those topics. So we do want to go beyond, hey, we're just going to have a conversation and you guys draw what you want from that or whatever. We do hope to bring it together at the end of each episode with the idea of what we're calling wisdom nuggets to round out each episode. And Hannah, maybe you can explain that.
So wisdom nuggets came from my fiction writing teacher back in my, I don't remember what year, but in college. And it was a term coined by him. And it was basically to describe anything that a character said that was extremely, what's the phrase that I'm looking for? Hitting the nail on the head. I'm not sure. It's whenever somebody's like, oh, I guess I never needed anyone else's help. After all, I had the courage and the strength within me this entire time. Like anything that basically makes you roll your eyes. You're like, oh my gosh.
When the character or narrator or whatever just beat you over the head with, hey, this is the theme of my story. In case you weren't
of the story, in case you weren't
paying attention, this is the lesson you take away from this, which is a terrible thing to do in writing. Hannah was a English creative writing major, and I was a minor. And you're supposed to show, not tell. And
if you feel the need to have a character say that you didn't do a good job in your story, and the thing is that don't treat your readers like they're stupid. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to treat my listeners like they are stupid, because I don't think that at all, but this is not a fiction writing class.
And this is not a well-crafted story we're doing here. We want this to be a casual conversation about different relatable topics, or hopefully relatable topics. Hopefully that all the things that we choose to talk about are things that people can connect with. And then, we want to offer that perspective and say, okay, this is what we hope you can take away from this episode, I think.
But then I think that covers the general format and what we're hoping to accomplish. again, we're just two people that have our own viewpoints. And if nothing else, I hope this can just be something that you can put on while doing the dishes or listen to while you're driving in the car or whatever. If nothing else, just to put it on and for a distraction. But if more than that, I hope that it can actually help you in a significant way in your life. But I'm not gonna hold my breath on that.
So as far as the teaser for the first episode, we are going to talk about our story, which seems maybe not the most interesting for people to listen to up front, but we do think it's important to say, okay, this is our story. This is how we met. This is how this is our life situation, because we do we want to lay that groundwork of this is who we are and this is where we come from and how we see the world and think about the world and why we're going to be covering the topics that we're going to cover.
Okay. Thank you all for listening. I hope you're excited. I know I'm excited. So we will just talk to you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.